One of the things, though, I've asked uh, every everybody I've interviewed is um, who were your early influences, uh, who kind of midway through your career influenced you, and who are you listening to, and who's impacting how you think musically today?
Ooh, man, great question. And it's just the whole catalog of music. It's like where to begin. But my story basically goes like this. I'm actually kind of a product of education in the schools. Like I started playing saxophone when I was in the fourth grade band. I was a band geek. I played drums in the marching band, and I did all, and I loved it, and I have nothing but respect for that. So that's how I was kind of brought into it. I actually didn't start playing bass until almost by the time I graduated high school, right around the last couple of years of high school. And at that point in my life, being 14, 15, 16, actually it was 16 when I started, I was real into like metal, like hair bands of my generation. Iron Maiden, Ozzy Osbourne, Metallica I was actually really big into, and so Anesthesia, Cliff Burton, bass solo, that was one of the first bass solos I ever learned. So I actually started in that arena, and then after high school I went to college and was a double major in school for a little bit, classical on the upright and jazz. And at that point, I remember my teacher, Rusty Holloway, the first thing he played me was Bitches Brew by Miles Davis. And that really kind of freaked me out because I hadn't really heard anything quite like that because I was obviously not listening to that. And so from that point, I started tracing it back and just kind of did a whole jazz history all the way back to Louis Armstrong and then kind of worked myself backwards. My whole thing has been really kind of bizarre. And shortly thereafter, I moved to Memphis and got real deep into like Stax and Memphis music and like Duck Dunn, and then I got into like the whole Motown, James Jamerson, like playing like just bass, like the first 5 frets, but just being real rhythmic and note choices and really, to be honest with you, I mean, I love the whole education thing, and I'm totally pro all that, but I felt like I had just as much of valuable education outside of the classroom, actually what I would call being educated on the bandstand.
All right.
When you're on the stage and someone calls a song and you have no idea, you've never heard it, and you're standing in front of a live audience, here you go, and just make it happen, and just that kind of camaraderie between some of the musicians and some of the people that would sit in and the song choices and whatnot. So there was that whole side, and that kind of took me, through, up to kind of, I guess, what you said, the midpoint. And then currently, I mean, I'm very much influenced by everything at this point. I just love it all. I'm not any kind of musical snob or Nazi. I really can appreciate everything. I mean, if I had to classify my music, it's typically not this CD, but typically most of my stuff is instrumental. And it typically, I guess, could be borderline smooth jazz or contemporary jazz, maybe jazz fusion. I don't even really like labels. I just hope that what I do is good music, basically, is what I hope. But in the business world, categorically, it would probably be in that mold. However, I draw from R&B and rock and funk and metal, everything. So, but right now, I am like freaking out about this artist who most people know at this point, Imogen Heap, who's an electronic artist, and actually she was real inspiring because her CD that the last one she just completed, I think Eclipse or Ellipse, she did everything herself. She recorded, actually won a Grammy for engineer for that record just recently, but she did the whole thing. And so I kind of kept up with her on her vlogs, her video blogs, which is kind of clever, vlog, and kind of kept up with her process through this. And so just to watch that, it was like that kind of triggered, actually, that was very inspiring. But musically, I'm just real intrigued because she's doing some stuff sonically, sound-wise, sonically, just sounds that she's creating is things that I've never heard before, and I think a lot of people. It's so fresh, it's so contemporary, it's so in the now. It's just real. For me, it's very exciting because it's it's kind of opened up a whole world of sounds, and then for me trying to implement that in with maybe more improvisation, but kind of fused with just trying something new, trying to be 2010. And obviously that's all our goals, but hopefully, but at any rate, she's my biggest influence right now for me on that kind of vision of where I personally want to go on my musical path.
Well, and Joseph, I know also that you do a lot of reading and listen to CDs in the area of personal growth, and
Yep.
how has that impacted your creativity and impacted you personally?
Wow. Yeah, I'm definitely about personal growth, and the thing I've kind of been tripping on the most is what I would call time management. No one really ever discusses, like, we wake up in the morning, we go to bed at night. Okay, what do we do between all that time? And a lot of us are just kind of, we work 9 to 5, and we do this, we do that, we're just kind of shuffling, but it's just so easy. All of a sudden, 3 or 4 months go by, and you say to yourself, what have I really been doing for 3 or 4 months? And then you think about it, it's like, my God, So it really comes down to that time management. And I know it sounds anal, but maybe it's just the way I am, but it's, from 9 to 10, from 10 to 10:30, like actually blocking out time.
So really managing your activities,
Exactly.
because time itself, it's the same for everybody. It's just how you manage your activities.
That's right, and I believe you said it best, or passed it on to me, that if you don't manage your time, someone else will manage it for you.
That's correct.
And that's some of the best advice I've ever heard. And so it's so true, because if you don't do that, you're just going to be shuffling through life, and all of a sudden, I don't know what to tell you. But to me, that's like the secret ingredient, because if you look at Lance Armstrong, or you look at any great athlete, or anybody that's given of themselves of something greater, whatever that might be, it could be in any field, it could be a garbage man, I don't care what it is, whatever that is. You've formulated what, I don't even know how to say what I'm saying, I'm losing myself, but basically to get to that level, to get to that place, you've had to train, or you've had to think about time management, or you wouldn't be where you're at. So at any rate, that's just kind of real big on the radar for me.